It's a tough one, really. I mean, I've got friends of mine who are from the Isle of Man. I've got, my cousin's over there. He's a police officer over there, and I've got a family there. And it is tough. I've looked at it myself in the past because I've got a comedy club company in the UK, and you sort of look at it and think, I wonder if the Isle of Man's possible as somewhere you could do a comedy gig. But it's just so hard. Once you're factoring in ferries and flights and stuff like that, suddenly it just becomes really difficult. And a lot of places have had this. I remember Northern Ireland in the late 90s being a really tough place to start comedy in. But what they did was they started it themselves with local people and local acts, and then they would just get one act in, every month from England or Scotland or wherever, So it has to start with yourselves. It's nobody off on the outside is going to start it. You have to do it yourself and let it and grow, and also the audience have to feel like it's theirs and that it belongs to them, and that it's important that they show up every week or every month.
Jason, you're coming to the Isle of Man soon. We'll talk about that. Your new tour is called Like Me. Is that like me as in you are just, or is that like me as in please do?
Well, it's both, really. That was the original thought process. But I did start, I named that tour and started writing that tour in 2019. I thought, this is a good idea. And then a little pandemic happened. And that got thrown out the window, and everything else that's happened subsequently has ended up in my show. So if you sat there in the audience waiting for me to talk about being liked, you'll be waiting a long time.
Bit disappointing. It must have been the weirdest profession to be involved with over the last couple of years, with shows cancelled and just not happening. But you took to YouTube and you were doing lots of bits and pieces, weren't you? You're keeping busy.
Yeah, we did. We did some online gigs. I did some quizzes for kids. Quizzes for adults. We did all sorts, and it was brilliant fun. And we just, you just do what you do, really, just to sort of get yourself through it, just to get your mind to think about. Also for other people sat at home and being stuck at home, I just thought, well, this might be a fun thing to do. So yeah, we did that. I did some gaming, which I've never done before. Play computer games while people watched, like things that you didn't even think.
The weird thing with that is, when we were kids, that was called waiting your turn at the amusement arcade, and now it's a thing online, isn't it?
Yeah, and you don't even get a go.
Which is rubbish.
You have to sit and watch. I know it's bizarre, but people love it. Who knows how the world moves on? So yeah, I kept busy during lockdown, and it was tough because we were one of the first things cancelled, one of the last things allowed to go back. So it was it's probably the hardest hit industry during the pandemic, and so to get back on stage it's just been a real privilege. So I started the tour last September. I came over to the Isle of Man for some warm-up shows last September, and then we're back again now, and it's just been a real privilege just to be back on stage, to be honest, after it being taken away from us.
You talked about warm-up shows. How important is a warm-up show? You go out on tour, you take it around. How much do you tweak the show when you've done that?
My show never stops changing, really. It's sort of an organic process, and it's funny, I have friends and even support comics who've seen it at the beginning and seen it a few months later and have noticed how everything just expands. Every routine sort of becomes a bit bigger, and you add bits to it, and for me, it keeps it interesting for me because I'm doing 260 dates. If I went on trying to do the same thing every night, I'd be bored myself. So it's I sort of treat it like a squad of footballers. I don't play the same team every night.
And how much do you tweak it? Because you're on tour, you're around the UK, then you're heading off to Europe. How much do you tweak the show? If you're playing somewhere, Liverpool, or you're playing the Isle of Man, or you're playing in London, do you tweak the show sort of allowing for where you are?
Yeah, it naturally changes just because of where you are. I've just been in Somerset this week, and you're right in the sticks, you're right in the middle of nowhere, and so it just adapts because of that. And then sometimes you're in the middle of a big metropolitan city. And then, as you said, like next year, we go and do, Antwerp and Amsterdam and Oslo and places in Europe. So then it'll have to become more international, then Australia and America. And, you just change it each time just to adapt around your audience.
We talk about changing shows and whatever else. We're in a world now where things people laughed at openly 5 years ago are now being questioned. We've seen that with Edinburgh and stuff. Where do you stand on that whole thing?
I've got to say, I think it's a big hoo-ha about nothing. That's what I think. I don't think there's any such thing as cancellation culture. I think it's been dreamt up by the media, to be honest. Jimmy Carr was in trouble. He's still on a worldwide tour. Dave Chappelle, he's getting cancelled. He's got a $24 million deal with Netflix. I wouldn't mind being cancelled myself. So, I actually think fundamentally the people who go to comedy gigs are the ones in charge on whether or not someone's cancelled or not. And they're still going. Chubby Brown still sells out gigs, and Jim Davidson still tours. And so I just think, you just got to not believe everything you read in newspapers, because actually, if anything, you can say whatever you want on stage. You just got to deal with the consequences either, at the end of it. And if your audience likes that, I know Jerry Sadowitz got in trouble in Edinburgh, but he's still got a gig at the Hammersmith Apollo coming up. So he's not cancelled that much, is he?
If that's cancellation, as you say, and particularly in the terms of Dave Chappelle, we'll take that. Will you get any downtime whilst you're here on the Isle of Man?
Yeah, I'm on an early flight over, and I'm on the last flight back. So it's, I always try and make sure I fit as much. Usually I do a couple of nights so I get to see everybody, but I've just got some family coming to the show, and I'll see a few friends, and like I said, my cousins are police officers are there, so I'll often sit with him for a bit and get all the mad stories that have been going on over the island.
and have you sort of indulged in any of the folklore and stuff? Because the Isle of Man's big into its folklore, the fairies and everything else.
Oh, absolutely. There's no way I'm going over that bridge and not saying hello and saluting the fairies. I certainly, I'll be saying long tail. I'll be, I get stuck in. I remember doing a gig years ago when, and 4 comics were going over, and the taxi driver told us all to, say hello and salute the fairies or whatever. And one comic was like, "Don't be ridiculous." And we all did the gig, and we all had a great gig. And he absolutely died of death that night.
Wow.
And we were sat in the dressing room afterwards, and we were all looking at him, and he was looking at us. He went, "Don't say it." I was like, "Mate, the fairies, isn't it? The fairies."
There is, if you get a moment, look on YouTube. There is a classic piece of old footage from the Pathé Film Labs where the cameraman didn't say hello to the fairies and the camera broke down. There is a Chumley Warner voiceover that goes with it, and it's genuine. It's very funny.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Besides stand-up, you were recently in an episode of Uncanny on BBC Sounds about people's real-life encounters with ghosts and unexplained stuff. What was the basic story behind that?
Well, it was a friend of mine, Danny Robbins, does this brilliant podcast, Uncanny, and I've been listening to it for a couple of years. And then he asked me if I had any stories, and I just had one ghost story, but that happened to me when I was in the musical Sweeney Todd in the West End. And he just said, "Oh, I'd love you to come on and tell this story." And it went crazy. The amount of people who got in touch to talk to me about it and say it sort of gave them shivers, So yeah, it's definitely worth having a listen to.
And the Villa Gaiety where you're playing is also supposedly haunted. You may have heard that story.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Exactly. It definitely is.
Watch this space. You get that vibe, do you? You get that feeling. So tour is busy at the moment, taking up all your time. What else is on the horizon for you?
Unbeatable starts again. That's on BBC Two at 6:30. That's the quiz show that I do for the Beeb, which is a lot of fun. And then we start filming Starstruck for ITV, the big sort of stars in your eyes type show. We start the second series of that, and we've got a new judge, Shania Twain, taken over from Sheridan Smith. So, it's exciting. Next few months, and then I finish the tour in November. Then we do Panto in Manchester for 3 weeks. I'm playing Captain Hook. So it's a busy old year.
Lots going on. Look forward to seeing the show. Look forward to you coming over, and don't forget to say hello to the fairies.
Lovely. Take care.
Cheers, Jason. Thank you.